of chemical weapons. Establishing this deterrent is a vital national security interest of the United States. The combined American, British, and French response to these atrocities will integrate all instruments of our national power, military, economic, and diplomatic. We are prepared to sustain this response until the Syrian regime stops its use of prohibited chemical agents. I also have a message tonight for the two governments most responsible for supporting, equipping, and financing the criminal Assad regime. To Iran and to Russia, I ask, what kind of a nation wants to be associated with the mass murder of innocent men, women, and children? The nations of the world can be judged by the friends they keep. No nation can succeed in the long run by promoting rogue states, brutal tyrants, and murderous dictators. In 2013, President Putin and his government promised the world that they would guarantee the elimination of Syria's chemical weapons. Assad's recent attack and today's response are the direct result of Russia's failure to keep that promise. Russia must decide if it will continue down this dark path or if it will join with civilized nations as a force for stability and peace. Hopefully, someday we'll get along with Russia and maybe even Iran, but maybe not. I will say this. The United States has a lot to offer. With the greatest and most powerful economy in the history of the world. In Syria, the United States, with but a small force being used to eliminate what is left of ISIS, is doing what is necessary to protect the American people. Over the last year, nearly 100% of the territory once controlled by the so-called ISIS Caliphate in Syria and Iraq has been liberated and eliminated. The United States has also rebuilt our friendships across the Middle East. We have asked our partners to take greater responsibility for securing their home region, including contributing large amounts of money for the resources, equipment, and all of the anti-ISIS effort. Increased engagement from our friends, including Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Egypt, and others, can ensure that Iran does not profit from the eradication of ISIS. America does not seek an indefinite presence in Syria under no circumstances. As other nations step up their contributions, we look forward to the day when we can bring our warriors home, and great warriors they are. Looking around our very troubled world, Americans have no illusions. We cannot purge the world of evil or act everywhere there is tyranny. No amount of American blood or treasure can produce lasting peace and security in the Middle East. It's a troubled place. We will try to make it better, but it is a troubled place. The United States will be a partner and a friend, but the fate of the region lies in the hands of its own people. In the last century, we looked straight into the darkest places of the human soul. We saw the anguish that can be unleashed and the evil that can take hold. By the end of World War I, more than 1 million people had been killed or injured by chemical weapons. We never want to see that ghastly specter return. So today, the nations of Britain, France, and the United States of America have marshaled their righteous power against barbarism and brutality. Tonight I ask all Americans to say a prayer for our noble warriors and our allies as they carry out their missions. We pray that God will bring comfort to those suffering in Syria. We pray that God will guide the whole region toward a future of dignity and of peace. And we pray that God will continue to watch over and bless the United States of America. Thank you and good night. Thank you.
Well, that was President Donald Trump live from Washington, D.C. Just what he had to say regarding action against the Syrian government. He said that Assad is using chemical weapons to kill innocent people, and especially in the city of Douma recently. He called that terrible regime is committing all these crimes. That's not crimes of a human being, crimes of a monster. Chemical weapons are dangerous. A small amount can unleash extensive damage. He said we'll take action against chemicals, which is in America's interest. France and UK will also join us to stop Syria from using chemical attacks. The attacks will go on to Iran and Russia. He said that how can they adopt such a friend, and how can they promote brutal tyrants, in his words, and said that Putin guaranteed chemical elimination, but this shows that Russia has failed to keep its promises, so Russia had better step down or join other nations. And he said hopefully we'll get around with Iran and Russia one day, maybe, maybe not. And then he also asked partners in the Middle East, referring to Saudi Arabia, UAE, and Qatar and others, as he put it, to contribute to anti-ISIS or anti-Daesh action so that Iran does not benefit from eliminating Daesh. He said we'll act anywhere there is a tyranny on earth, and we'll try to make troubled Middle East a better place. And then he also asked people to pray for France, Britain, the U.S., who are going to take action against what he called barbarism. So that was President Trump delivering his speech regarding taking military action against Syria. Now let's move on with the rest of our news bulletin. So, well, I was talking to Scott Bennett from San Francisco regarding just hot on the heels of just the discussion. We're talking about taking military action against Syria, and then we ran to President Trump's speech about that. Now, Scott, please go ahead. Sorry for the interruption.
Well, it certainly seems like the plot thickens, doesn't it? President Trump just making this proclamation. In one sense, we all know there was no Syrian Bashar Assad Syrian government poisoning. There was no chemical attack. That's been disproven. The Russians have done an excellent job in interviewing some of the hospital staff that have said there was no chemical attack. This was an artificially designed psychological operations tool to try and gin up hostility against Syria using a fabricated event. They've done it before. They did it 1 year ago today around, and they're doing it again. So everyone with a brain and any sense of truth and logic and scientific analysis knows there was no chemical attack. The U.S. uses this. The UK, United Kingdom, uses this to advance its militarism agenda to destabilize 7 countries in 5 years, which have included Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, Egypt, and now Syria, with the future targets to be Iran and Russia and China eventually. The obsession, the religious cult fanaticism of certain U.S. Warmongers is complete full-spectrum dominance. That means full global control of every aspect of life, and they're using the flag of terrorism to execute that. So when President Trump is saying this, we all know it's not factual, it's not true, and there is an answer, of course, and the answer has to be very intelligent and very subtle and very wise. And the answer is for President Putin, President Rouhani, the Chinese president, to say to Mr. Trump, we realize you're under attack by your own deep state. We realize there's a civil war in America. We realize that you have to take this missile strike against Syria to gin up political influence, to distract the neocon Zionists, which are obsessed with trying to create trouble between Russia and the United States. But we're here to tell you what you're being told, the science and the facts you're being given, Mr. President, are all lies. You're being lied to by John Bolton, lied to by Nikki Haley. You're being lied to by Mike Pompeo, CIA director. You're being lied to by people in the State Department because there are agendas to have a global war that is perennial, that is never ending. That is not the agenda of the American people. It is certainly not the agenda of the Constitution. But yet President Trump is a president under siege. That's part of the reason that they went after his attorney, Michael Cohen, because he knew all about the Swiss banks funding terrorism. And we've been in contact with Michael Cohen and provided him with that material in 2015 and 2016. That's why they've arrested him.
Exactly.
That's why they're going after all these understories.
And Scott, who do you think Trump was referring to as he asked the countries that support, in his words, ISIS or Daesh, and he doesn't want, he wants to take all the credit now that Iran has been able to get rid of it. It's been mostly on the back of Iranian efforts, as everyone knows. And then who are those countries who in the first place gave rise to Daesh and then provided support of all kinds? Now he's asking UAE and Saudi Arabia to do everything and take action against ISIS, as he calls it, so that Iran does not reap the profit in his words.
Well, like I said, he's either using this to gin up political capital so that he is protected, he is deflected from the attacks he is enduring here in America, or he is a very delusional man with false material, false intelligence, and he really doesn't know the facts, which is very dangerous, because if he initiates a military strike against Russia or Iran or both to try and bloody the nose of those countries, he very well could get a counterstrike that knocks him and America unconscious with severe concussions and broken bones, not just a bloody nose, because Russia and China and Iran and the rest of the world has seen that this agenda, this warmongering agenda by the United States since 2001, has a global domination objective. And you cannot reason with people like that. You need to completely destroy their initiative, destroy their momentum, peel away their allies. That's why Germany is peeling away. They're not standing with the liars under the United Kingdom who have invented this false poisoning of the Skripal family that's never happened. They're most likely going to kill the Skripals eventually and pretend that they died from their injuries. The French, Macron, who is like a little child out of boarding school, he is simply following his script of his globalist masters. So the British and the French have tried to lure President Trump because of their own domestic disintegration. And President Trump is going along with his deep state military war hawks to send missiles against Syria and continue which will then pour up through Syria, enter the vacuum, and then go into Europe. Every European nation should be told, be prepared for another 10 million refugees that are coming into your country because Donald Trump is destroying the last vestiges of their civilization.
Exactly. I appreciate your comments. Scott Bennett, former U.S. Army Psychological Warfare Officer, joining me from San Francisco. Now, the United States and Russia have clashed at the UN Security Council over the alleged use of chemical